This episode is brought to you by Wear Buff, your go-to for Buffalo-inspired apparel. Get your hands on stylish t-shirts, hoodies, and more at wearbuff.com. That's wearbuff.com. And make sure you use the promo code TWB at checkout for 10% off your first order. Stay Buffalo proud with Wear Buff. James Cook and the Buffalo Bills defense lead them to victory over the Miami Dolphins, 31-10, this week on the Wandering Buffalo podcast.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your host, Justin Goddard.
Bills Mafia, welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network. My name is Justin, and I am your host today, and hey, Bills are 2-0. This was a fun game for me, and it's ironic that this is not a very exciting box score game. I don't know about any of you, but sometimes, life happens. You're not sitting in front of a TV watching the game live, and that's exactly what happened to me this weekend. I was doing some traveling to see family, had to kind of keep an eye on the game through the box score, and before doing this episode, I watched the game on NFL Plus a couple times. But, what do you look for when you're box score hunting? You're looking for the exciting offense. What's Josh Allen doing? What are the receivers doing? And this game was kind of just like, I'll be checking the score real quick and, the Bills got more points and still not much going on offense. This game for me was just kind of a testament to what Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich are able to do as defensive minds. James Cook absolutely took over this game, the offensive line creating holes for him. And I think this is the type of win that I get the most excited for, because the NFL is difficult, right? Everybody's got great players. Everybody's got coaches that know what you want to do. They want to take that away. And you have to find different ways to be able to win. And it's why I'll never apologize for an ugly win. Just get the W. And some weeks it's going to be your defense holds you up. Some weeks your offense is going to drag you along. And sometimes you're going to need Josh Allen to play hero ball. And if I gave you just the score without any context to the game, and I told you the Bills beat the Dolphins 31-10, you'd probably think Josh Allen went pretty ham in the game. He is 13 for 19, 139 yards and a touchdown, just like a very pedestrian game. This team was bolstered up by the defense, 3 turnovers, one of them being a pick six, and lots of performances from, unexpected guys that I would have had concerns about being on the field a couple weeks ago. And they're just kind of getting it done. Jamarcus Ingram, 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick six. Christian Benford getting an interception. Cam Lewis making a handful of plays. Damar Hamlin made some plays. It's just kind of like all of these positions that we were worried about. And, not to mention, we have Terrell Bernard gets hurt. Matt Milano's already out. We got Balen Spector out there. Just all of these positions where I would have had concerns and, expected these to maybe be like fatal flaws, especially early in the season. And McDermott and Babich are just getting it done on defense, so they deserve the props that they get right now. The one note that I, kind of starred, highlighted, all that, was towards the tail end of the game, and it was nothing really serious. But I was really excited for it because we're talking, week 2 of the season, this high-powered Miami offense that gives everybody fits. division rival, all kinds of things to build this game up. You're in a primetime slot, and there was a play in the fourth quarter where I believe it was Austin Johnson, maybe it was Dwayne Carter, not sure, but they're getting after the quarterback, get a quarterback hurry, quarterback hit, and down the field the ball goes into triple coverage. Could have easily been intercepted on most sets of plays, but we had Mike Edwards in there, Cole Bishop, and Balen Spector breaking up this pass. And, I know we're kind of garbage time, fourth quarter. Tua's hurt at this point, and, it is what it is. I feel like I'm talking about a preseason game, but that's what gets me excited for it, right? Like we're in week 2 of the season, and we're sitting there in the fourth quarter with a comfortable enough lead that we're getting our backups and our young guys reps. And I know this isn't going to happen every week. Those are just valuable reps that most teams aren't going to be able to get their players. Like, you're either the starter or you're not, and if you're not, make sure you stay ready in case of injury. But Bills are out here. Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop, Balen Spector, all coming together to break up a pass at the end of the game. And I thought that was a pretty fun layer to this. Offensively, as I mentioned, we don't have a ton to talk about here. The one thing we do have to talk about is James Cook. And if you listen to the show on a regular basis, you know that I had my hot take of the offseason was somewhere 6-7 weeks into the season, we were going to see Ray Davis, take over primary ball carrier duties from James Cook. And maybe James Cook heard me and he took it personally, but he came out and had a freaking day. 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. The one receiving touchdown he had was an absolutely beautiful play. It comes through the benefit of McDermott being aggressive on offense, which if you've listened to the show last week, you know that I always appreciate McDermott's aggressiveness as a coach, but it's often aggressive using special teams and defense. Seeing them go for it on 4th down to seal off this drive, beautiful play call. James Cook running open, he catches the ball. Just absolutely beautiful. He ends up with 11 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. The 1 carry, absolute thing of beauty, 49-yard run. He gets to the second level, and it's him versus Poyer left. And this is one that I've seen all over the socials of you hear it all the time. Like, you'd rather get out a year too early on a guy than a year too late. And it seems like, we noticed that maybe Poyer was losing a step last year. Maybe there was some injury stuff going on. But when Cook is getting that edge and we're doing a foot race between Poyer taking an angle and Cook getting to the end zone, he was at the 20-yard line before I realized he was gone. And this isn't to sit here and knock Jordan Poyer, throw anything at him. Jordan Poyer is one of my all-time favorite Bills. But when I'm able to put that up against what we're seeing from the Bills defense in the absence of all these names, we lost a lot of key players on this defense, and I think there was some just anxiety of the unknown through the offseason of, we all as fans know these players were around. They may be losing a step. Trey White, we knew, was injured the last 2 years. And I think that, myself included, the kind of national narrative of look at all these names that you've lost. Kind of I had to keep reminding myself of the perspective of it, that it's not 5 years ago. These guys were another 5 years older. They were dealing with injuries throughout. And I kind of got to the point where, like, I was cool with having to move on, but I was very unsure of what the next players up were. And honestly, when it comes to at least the defensive, like, back seven, you have to be feeling good about, McDermott and Babbage developing these players. And I already felt that way, but, maybe you lucked into Poyer and Hyde and it happened to work out that way. Maybe a couple of these guys slipped through the cracks, but we're now talking a laundry list of players who were afterthoughts from other teams, late round picks. You even can take Rasul Douglas, who was somebody the Packers were willing to let go last year. And, that one's a little bit of a different scenario. You gave up a third-round pick for him. It wasn't like, you got him for a late-round pick swap. But the list of players that, between McDermott and Babbage, playing safety, playing cornerback, that just don't have this NFL pedigree. They're not household names, and they're getting it done week in and week out. And this game in particular for me really highlights that, because we're not talking about, some bum quarterback with mediocre receivers, or like, a team in transition with some talent but a lot of unknown. I mean, this was a Miami defense that gave all kinds of teams fits last year. This is Tyreek Hill, one of the fastest players in football, paired up with Jaylen Waddle and their explosive speed. And we saw them do next to nothing against the Bills. I mean, we have Jaylen Waddle, 4 catches on 4 targets for 41 yards. Tyreek Hill, 6 targets, 3 catches, 24 yards. Both of them kept out of the end zone. And, that's like your offensive threat right there. Sprinkle in Devon Achane. He had 22 carries for 96 yards, and it's often hard not to get frustrated when you have some plays getting gashed in the run game, right? It's never fun to watch that. But kind of the perspective of, and I've talked about this a lot into last season, about the Bills kind of letting you pick your poison, and a team like this, they're like, go ahead and run all day. If you have 100 yards on the ground and you feel like you had a good ground game, probably means you didn't have the same day passing it. And I will take 100 yards on the ground from Achane over Tyreek Hill, getting rolling, getting some consistent touches, getting the yak, and all of a sudden he has, 170-yard day on you and 2 touchdowns, and everybody's having a bad time. So I think it's even more impressive of how they've been able to keep this defense slapped together. Then you add in the injuries, and you add in that we're in week 2 of the season, and a lot of these guys are getting, some of their first significant reps. And it just makes me feel good about the team going forward. Dorian Williams, Balen Spector getting valuable time out there. Now, I would still much prefer it to be Milano and Bernard out there. Don't get me wrong there. But there is a chance that, we will get Bernard back this season, hopefully. Hopefully nothing, crazy shows up later like we're seeing with Christian McCaffrey. Matt Milano, hopefully coming back this season at some point. And your hope there is that we've gotten like the serious injury bug out of the way early. I do still have concerns about the linebackers at this point. We have, largely unproven talent out there. These are guys that, in Dorian Williams and Spector, that we've invested in through the draft and seemingly, have made at least some noise through preseason and training camps. But we haven't seen them start a ton, and what does that look like? So I still have some concern there, but my biggest concern in regards to like the linebackers in particular is that we've already tested the depth. Like, we're already there. We're like where we were upset about being in the playoffs last year, and we bolstered our linebackers to make sure we don't end up in that same spot, and it just happened earlier this season. So hopefully we can just be done there. Maybe we'll see Buffalo Joe get a jersey next week. Who knows? There's a lot going on there. But overall, just a great day on both sides of the ball. It just kind of like what complementary football can look like. And it's not always just, the defense making plays and the offense taking care of the ball. Like, this was a game where the offense really didn't have to do a whole lot, and the defense was going to will them there. I will say, I've seen some stuff pop up, how Twitter goes of, oh, congratulations, you beat the Dolphins backup quarterback. I debated even getting into this. I mean, Tua got hurt in the fourth quarter, that the game was already all but over. I just kind of want to stay away from the Tua injury. It always looks very scary. Knowing his history, all that. But I'm not a doctor. I don't know, what in particular with Tua makes his concussion hits look so much scarier than most of them we see. I do know that we had, a guy in Mitch Morse that had a pretty crazy concussion history, and he kept coming back, and I'm not going to sit here and prognosticate and predict what Tua is or should do or what his team and family should be telling him to do. I don't feel like any of that's my place. It's really easy for me to say, like, hey, you just got a bunch of guaranteed money in your contract. Seems like a good time to step away. I also have never had, the competitive streak in me that these players have to be able to make it to that level. Like, it's not easy for them to be like, okay, I've made money, I'm just going to hang it up. So that's kind of my real non-committal 2 cents on it. All I really hope is that he's okay now, and whatever decision he makes going forward is the right decision for him. I love seeing the Bills beat the Dolphins. Some things are bigger than football. I just hope for him and his family that he's all right, takes time to look at everything and makes the best decision for him. That's all I really got on that. One thing kind of lost in this, and I'm, again, not going to get too high or low on this, is we did have Tyler Bass miss in this game. He did hit one from 43, 4 for 4 on his extra points. Like, that's encouraging. Yes, he's an NFL kicker. He's a highly paid NFL kicker. We have our concerns with him due to the end of last year and the start of, preseason training camp, whatnot. I am going to try very hard not to get too low on him when we see him miss, because NFL kickers are like any other player on the field. They make mistakes. They're going to miss. They're going to shank things. I will say that I wish when he missed, they just looked better. And that may or may not sound stupid. I don't know. But, like, that ball came off his foot, and you didn't have to watch the trajectory of it at all. You didn't have to watch where it went. You knew that ball wasn't going through the uprights. I just can't really wrap my head around, like, how he looks so good and then so bad. Like I said, it's one kick from this game. I don't have an alternative plan that makes sense of who's out there that's better, that's going to make all the money things make sense. So my support goes behind Bass, and I'm going to kind of try to take a more positive approach to this and hope if we have enough people in his corner, everything, works itself out and he gets all the way back on track. That's about it from this game. Like I said, there's like a ton to talk about that was great, but also like this is just one of the more fun, relaxing, stress-free games I've gotten to watch as a Bills fan in recent history. They always like to make it stressful and, be a tight one-score game. This game, granted I had the benefit of having the final score as I sat down to watch it, but it was also like watching this game on like live for me the first time, because I wasn't following it like play by play as I was watching it. I know like how the whole game script broke down and all that. Watching it live for me was like there wasn't much time that I really felt stressed. The Dolphins get the field goal before half, and I'm like, okay, it's a 2-score game. Like that can get erased pretty quickly. Let's make sure we keep things buttoned up. You never know what the halftime adjustments are going to look like. But like, there was at no point that I felt like this game was in any sort of jeopardy. Now, coming up, we do have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they currently sit at 0-2 and don't look like the threat that I thought they might be as they loaded up on weapons. But it's also only 2 weeks. I don't want to put too much context into anything. We see week 1, like that, for all intents and purposes, should have been a win against Miami. They, have the lead. They're going down, threatening to score. ETN has a fumble. Miami turns it into a touchdown. End up winning on a last-second field goal. It is what it is. That's football. You can't, it's easy to say if we take away that one play, but the one play happened. I will say that Jacksonville is a team that, for whatever reason, has been able to have a great ability to give the Bills some problems in recent years. Being a team that's loaded up this offseason and, has some expectations and has had some success and built upon the roster that they had success with. I don't love that we have them coming into town prime time. Probably pretty pissed off that they started the season 0-2. Like I said, despite all of the changes within the Bills locker room this offseason, they look like they haven't really missed a beat. Hopefully this, little mini bye they have here, get some time to get a good game plan together, get the team rested up a little bit, maybe get some of these guys with bumps and bruises a little bit healed up. Taron Johnson front, we still haven't seen him move to IR, so maybe there's a chance. I don't know. I know they're not going to rush him back. But in the meantime, I feel pretty good about what we got going on with the depth on this team, which, as the depth kind of became the starters in a lot of spots, I feel pretty good about what we've looked like so far with the depth already, having to show itself. So a lot more football to play. As of the recording of this podcast, the Bills do sit in the 1 seed. Maybe we can take that, a little bit wire to wire and have one of the most exciting seasons of football that we've seen, and we've seen a lot of good football recently. That's it for this week's episode. I do thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. If you made it this far, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, drop a comment for us. It really helps. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Make sure you're checking us out on our website, wanderingbuff.com. Jake's been doing a ton of work on articles. I'm going to do a little bit more myself. We got merch up there for sale. If you're listening on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, drop a review. All these little things really help us to keep the show coming out every week, and it is greatly appreciated. The Bills are sitting 2-0. We got another primetime game coming up. So let's enjoy this little mini bye, and we will see you next week. As always, go Bills.